Expectations for Michigan freshman quarterback Bryce Underwood are about as high as they can possibly get. Maybe a little too high in some respects. Nonetheless, what if I was to tell you they might just be warranted? Let's get into all things Bryce Underwood on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday. We are back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. Big thank you to all of you out there who listen. Make us your first listen. This is my first time doing the show. I think it might be. Also, thank you to our everydayers out there who check out the show every single day. We do appreciate you. Today, we're going to start off with talking about Bryce Underwood. Then we're going to get into some of Paul Finebaum's comments about Sherrone Moore and just kind of the season expectations. And then after that, we are going to get into, what are we going to get into? That's a problem that I can't remember. I had the show all planned out. We'll see there. But we're going to continue to preview the season as far as it pertains. So we do have a plan. I just got to go to my notes once we get there, and they're not on the big screen. All right. So let's start out with Bryce Underwood. This is stemming from some comments and stemming from some conversations I've had with some people. It's also stemming from some comments from Ernest Hausman at Big Ten Media Days. So here's what Ernest Hausman had to say. He said, Bryce is as good as advertised. But the thing that I'm really impressed about is about Bryce is the way he's matured beyond his years. You would never know that he's a 17 years old coming into a college program, a five-star recruit, heavily recruited, has high expectations. You would never know that by looking at him, by talking to him at all. The quarterback position, it's completely open, and he could, just kind of toes the party line at that point. I've spoken to, I think, about 3 people who are kind of close to the situation, and the quarterback situation, to my understanding, is not as open as they would lead you to believe. And obviously there's there's design in that, right? Like Bryce Underwood is not a returning starter. He's a true freshman, all of the things. So you would expect, as we covered last week, that when Sherrone Moore's like, hey, we're not naming a starting quarterback, and people are not many, but there are some who were guffawing that whole scenario. It's understand that they're not going to necessarily tell you everything, number one. Number two, some of it is for motivational purposes, as I would believe is the case with Bryce Underwood. But here, one of the things that Hausman also mentioned, he says, I remember one moment, I'm seeing him before practice, right? Most of the time, people are getting taped up, ready, but he's out there walking through plays by himself. And so it just goes to show how bought in, how he cares about his preparation. That in and of itself is a big thing, right? Like when you have, and I understand, like, what do you expect him to say? Well, you can just be like, oh, it'll be interesting to watch it work. Feel like he's got a lot of talent. It'll be great. But like when you're proffering more than that, then that kind of tells you a little bit. And on top of that, that meshes with the things that I've heard behind the scenes. So what I kind of want to address is not just the hype, but like the constant caveats, and they're warranted, right? And I'm not saying like, yeah, you gotta expect Bryce to go out there, throw for 5,000 yards. I would caution against that. Right? Like, I think this would, as I've said, best case scenario for Michigan. Well, it's probably not best case scenario, but like most likely best case scenario is that this looks a lot like Cade McNamara 2021, right? Where they didn't throw like crazy amounts. Generally, it was still kind of a little bit West Coast offensive with a few deep shots, really great touchdown to interception ratio. But one of the things that's been kind of a narrative all offseason is, he's a freshman. Freshmen make mistakes. It's not going to work out. I mean, that is true. Freshmen make mistakes, right? He doesn't know what he doesn't know. That is important to know. I think that, again, based off of things that I've heard, people are underestimating the level of talent that this kid has, right? Like, he isn't like to even put him in the same category as JJ McCarthy. And this isn't against JJ. JJ was among the most prolific quarterbacks Michigan's had. Maybe not in terms of yards, but certainly in terms of achievements. And if Michigan would have left him out there all game, every game, I'm sure that things would have looked a little bit different. If Michigan's scheme was more pass heavy, it would have looked a little bit different. They didn't have Blake Corum, would have looked a little bit different, right? But so this is not a knock on JJ, who I love dearly, as a person, as a friend, as someone who I covered, right? Like I'm. This is not a knock on him. It does a disservice to Bryce Underwood when you make that comparison, because his ceiling is so much higher. Now, will he hit it? Who knows? But his ceiling is, without question, best Michigan quarterback of all time. Now, it's going to be up to Michigan to maximize that potential, and we'll see if that happens. But that does not mean that that we should be giving these typical caveats. Now, he's going to need help from his receivers. Spring game didn't look necessarily what we had hoped. And I think that in large part it was because Bryce put it, for the most part, where he was supposed to put it, receivers didn't come down with it, right? Like, you need to be able to see, but we didn't see, Donovan McCulley out there except for, one target, which he came down with impressively. So I think that the receivers need to be able to do their job, because a quarterback can be the most impressive thing out there, but if guys aren't coming down with the ball, then that's going to be a problem. I do think that is going to be an improved unit, but I don't think that when people are giving these like caveats and, or like comparing to past Michigan quarterback freshman years, or, whether it's like JJ or even going back to like Chad Henne, no one's really comparing him to Tate Forcier or Denard Robinson, but like, when people are saying, well, this is what other Michigan quarterbacks did, this is a completely different animal. So I don't think that that's necessarily accurate. Could he have some struggles here and there? Yes, because every quarterback just about does, right? But I don't think it's necessarily going to be because he's a true freshman. He's going to have a lot more time on task than most true freshman quarterbacks. And he already has a lot more that he knows, whether it's innately or learned. He's already operating like a professional, and he's just got a lot more on the table that others don't have. And I think one of the things is when you hear about Ernest Hausman talking about the professionalism, the maturity, the trust level, let me read that quote to add to it here. He says, "It's your daily actions that gain the trust of others," right? And he showed and proven to us he's a high-level person beyond just football players, and that's what we love about people. If you're a high-level person, we know what you're going to be on the field, because with someone, you want to know what you're going to get out of that person on the field. You don't ever want to ask or expect. With Bryce, you know what you can get out of him. He's a high-level competitor. Like I said, he just fits that quarterback room perfectly well. I'm excited to see who ends up being the quarterback. Again, that I don't buy that last part, that caveat. But I do think that he's got everything. And when you hear senior defensive leaders talking about him with the same kind of essentially outside of the caveats, which I feel are instructed, I don't know, but I feel are instructed, it's you kind of get this understanding that, okay, like everyone's ready to go. And with that in mind, I think Michigan could be a lot better than people think. All right, let's get to I know what the other segment was. We'll talk at the end about Germany, Michigan going and playing at Germany. But before we do that, we're going to talk about, we're going to but you're going to hear me pontificate on Paul Finebaum's comments on Sherrone Moore. It's not what you think when you normally think about Paul Finebaum. But let's get to that here in just a moment. Before we do ever wish managing your money felt easier, well, with Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's just like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place. So in addition to managing money, you're also building wealth. One of the great things about it is it shows you all of the subscriptions that you maybe signed up for that you had no idea, that you don't remember, and they've just been going 10, 15, $20 a month. every month for years. You can get that back through Monarch Money. Super helpful. Plus, considering that I spend about as much as the GDP of a small country on DoorDash, it helped me realize that, and now it's more like a township, more like a village, essentially. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. All right, so we're going to continue on here. Let's get to Paul Finebaum, who I think had some interesting things to say on ESPN, on Get Up. There was more than just him. Harry Douglas was on there as well. I think it's interesting because you see a lot of the things around. CBS Sports just put out my friend Brad Crawford, who I was a coworker at 24/7 Sports, his brother in Christ. I don't ever really like his Michigan opinions. Let me put it that way. So this isn't a call out, but it's he put Michigan's first losses at Oklahoma. He had no Big Ten teams going undefeated. I think that someone will. I'm not saying it will be Michigan. It's possible. It's possible Michigan, Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State, any of those could go undefeated at any point. Like I would even say Illinois, that's possible for them. But he had Michigan's first loss coming at Oklahoma. I feel like people are overrating Oklahoma, and his kind of thing is that Brett Venables is on the hot seat. There's a reason why he's on the hot seat, right? It isn't like he didn't care, didn't try. And he's like, oh, but they brought in John Mateer and Jaden Ott from Cal. Therefore, like, they're better. And it's like, yeah, Michigan brought in Bryce Underwood and Justice Haynes. I know that if given the option to have those two, maybe it's a more of a long term. I mean, I don't think Justice Haynes, if all goes to his plan, that he'll be here more than just this year. But I would rather have those guys, over. I like what Michigan has, right? Like, and I think even like a true freshman Bryce Underwood might be, based off of just kind of some of the things that we just said, might be just that incredible. But like generally, I bring all that up because there's this kind of general feeling like we've been talking about for weeks, months, years, right? Like kind of went on hiatus from 2021 to 23, with some exceptions in the offseason. Certainly as I say, Michigan's not allowed to get better, and everyone else is. Michigan's the one team that's not allowed to improve. And a lot of people look at Michigan and say, well, they did, 7-5 in the regular season without looking and understanding the growth that happened in the year, and then seeing the guys who are going to be stepping into starting roles playing the way they did against Alabama. So with that in mind, you see a lot of pundits out there that are like, well, they were 7-5 last year, let's make it 8-4 this year, right? Like, that's the difference of Bryce Underwood. And I think that's selling it short. No offense to the quarterbacks from last year, not up to snuff compared to what you should be seeing with even a true freshman Bryce Underwood. So, generally that's kind of the feeling. I think Michigan will be right there to make the college football playoff. I guess it depends on if they have two losses, who are those losses to? But here's what Paul Finebaum said. I think it was kind of interesting, and it's refreshing on me as I scroll, so that's not fun. He said, talking about Sherrone Moore, saying that don't let a speed bump become a roadblock, talking about the resurgence late last year. He says, I like what he said there. It's hard to find a criticism of a coach who ended the season beating your biggest rival and then beating Alabama in a bowl game with almost no starters as a double-digit underdog. Sherrone Moore is saying the right things. My question is, does he have the right stuff as a head coach? He did a nice job filling in for Jim Harbaugh during all of the controversy, but he didn't show anyone much last year other than the very end. He's got to be more consistent. He does he did say it this way. He does only the best quarterback, does have only the best quarterback coming into college. Nope, I just missed a word. This year in Bryce Underwood. How long will Bryce Underwood take to matriculate? And if he can get him going quickly, that they have a chance for a CFP bid, but I don't think they're going to make it. I think they'll fall just short. Just is doing some heavy lifting there. For once, Paul Finebaum, thank you for at least seeing reason here, because I feel like that's not what people are saying. They're talking about, and this is kind of where we are thematically in the first two segments here, is the idea of, Bryce is going to make all these mistakes and everything. Well, unless it's like multiple interceptions in a game, which is possible. I just think you're going to see much better quarterback play, and it doesn't take much given what Michigan was last year. Last in the country in yards per attempt. Remember that. Like, yards per attempt is one of the most important stats, especially if you're Michigan, because you recognize that they are a run heavy team, and I don't think that's going to change, right? So it's not just like, oh man, that guy threw for 400 yards. Okay, but he was 50% completion percentage, and what, this and this and this, right? And then you look at it and say, well, his yards per attempt, not great. It's not yards per completion, it's yards per attempt. So I think that for once you're seeing someone who's at least recognizing, okay, it's only a 2-game advantage, but as Harry Douglas started pointing out, he's like, I think they can do even better because the schedule. For once, someone's looking at the schedule and not acting like Oklahoma and Nebraska, although those are tough games on the road, like they're world beaters, right? Oklahoma was a 6-7 team last year. Nebraska, I don't remember their record offhand, barely made a bowl game, went to the bowl game that, obviously I didn't want to go to because it was a cold weather bowl game. I mean, that tells you something. First bowl game in a while. It might be a team on the up and up, but it's not necessarily one that is going to come out of nowhere. Maybe it will a little bit with Dylan Raiola being in year 2. But nonetheless, if those games were at home, chances are people would be saying Michigan's going to win those. Vegas seems to have it as a coin flip at Oklahoma and Michigan winning at Nebraska, I believe. So I'm glad to at least see that. Now, the other thing that is kind of troubling to me is CBS re-released its Big Ten coaching rankings, and Sherrone continues to be at 15th. We've already done shows on that. We do need to do another. But it's, why does he not get the credit? I understand bad losses in there, but you look at the job he did, right? Like, that's like looking at, and this isn't second year Jim Harbaugh at Stanford, right? Like, he didn't inherit something that bad. But like, you look at it and it's like, okay, he had really dire circumstances. He didn't have a workable quarterback. The transfer portal essentially was picked over by the time he got named head coach. So it wasn't like, for all the people who want to say things like, oh, you could have just gone to the transfer portal and gotten a quarterback. Okay, who? Name names. You don't have any because there weren't any. Oh, we could have just gotten Cam Ward. Okay, Cam Ward had already committed, right? Like, it was picked over at that point. So I don't understand, though, where he doesn't get the same kind of like David Shaw type treatment. He didn't have Andrew Luck to lead his way. Yet, when the fact that the team stuck together and beat Ohio State and beat Alabama, among two of the best wins, the best win in college football and among the best win in college football last year, after the team had lost games that it had no business losing. So that should tell you something, right? And I feel like Paul Finebaum actually kind of sees that, but isn't willing to go all in on that. But it's funny because we've talked about this before. Doesn't get the David Shaw love. Doesn't get the Marcus Freeman love. He's recruiting no different than Marcus Freeman was when he started at Notre Dame, and everyone was just like, oh, he's just the best. I just love him so much. Right? And for whatever reason, Sherrone doesn't get that treatment, but that's probably how he would prefer it anyway. So, all right, let's talk about Michigan playing in Germany and Frankfurt next year, August. My thoughts on that, we'll get that here in just a moment. But before we do, we've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Gametime comes in. Gametime makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. Sorry. Tired of endless scrolling and trying to find the best deal? Well, Gametime Zone Deals pick the best seats in your section for you. If you ever wonder what your view will actually be before you buy, well, guess what? That app shows you a panoramic seat view, so there's zero surprises. Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets and show tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, the code is LOCKEDONCollege at Gametime on the app. So create that account. Download the Gametime app. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. I don't know why I'm always leaning. I'm looking at the little tiny monitor. I always have to lean towards the microphone as if it can't pick me up from here. Big difference from here to here. If you're watching, not. It's just slouchy, leany. My posture on the show. All right. Let's finish out Michigan. First, it was revealed by Brett McMurphy that Michigan is looking to play Western Michigan in Germany. And then Michigan, I'm guessing somewhat forced by that, put out a press release saying we are working on, not finalized, but working on going to Frankfurt, Germany to play Western Michigan. So I have multiple thoughts. I'll give you how I feel internally inside my own heart of hearts is I love it. But because that's a self-serving opinion. It's self-serving. Because I was planning on going to Europe next summer one way or the other because I've never been abroad outside of going and seeing Canada. Mike and Danielle in Canada. I conquered Canada a couple years ago. I will be conquering it again this August. For America, by the way. But of course, there's the self-serving because I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go to Europe and I'm gonna figure out some places to go, and I'm still working out the details on that. Obviously, I've got plenty of time to do so. So I think it's a great opportunity if you are willing to spend the money to go to Europe and all of that. But I also recognize that it takes away a home game. I'm less concerned with that, except for the fact, like, it's a season opener, but it was switched to week 0 compared to week 1. That does take money out of Ann Arbor business pockets. That is one thing, but more so, my problem is the opponent. Now, you don't really, doesn't really have much juice or cachet, because it seems like usually when you see opponents or team playing abroad, like there's the yearly Aer Lingus Dublin series that happens. You get like Northwestern Nebraska. Now, that's not exactly a sexy matchup, but it is 2 Big Ten opponents. And now I see the flip side of it where it's like, well, I don't think it's about having like a crazy, amazing matchup as much as it is showcasing Michigan. But it is funny to me that you can spend as much time driving to the airport and waiting for your flight as it would take you to drive to Kalamazoo to actually see Western Michigan, right? Like the fact that these are 2 states. Now, great for Western Michigan though, too, right? For them to take their show on the road, but it does feel a lot like the Harlem Globetrotters playing, what's the team? The Generals, the Washington Generals. That's kind of what it feels like. And I think that that's probably by design. I would have liked to have seen it be a bigger matchup. So it's one of those things. But then again, if it was a bigger matchup, then everyone's a little bit more deprived, right? Like, so like, let's say it was like, okay, Michigan, Oklahoma, they took that home game away and now they're playing that in Germany. Well, now all the Michigan fans that wanted to absolutely see that game in Ann Arbor, or all the fans in Norman who wanted to make their way up to Ann Arbor, now they're like, well, great. Now we got to go to Germany to do it. Now I don't get to see Ann Arbor at all unless I just go there for, a game that doesn't have anything to do with Oklahoma. So I'm kind of torn on it a little bit because even though I want to see a bigger opponent, I certainly think that you could have found someone bigger than Western Michigan without making it like we just completely lost out on draw type of thing. Like, I this year there's really nothing good. I wouldn't have minded like Fresno State, like something of that level, but preferably more of like a power opponent, like when Michigan played SMU, although they were, I think, group of 5 at that time in 2018. But like something like that, or like when they played Oregon State in 2015, well, like that caliber, lower level Power 5, maybe like, flex in like, like Northwestern or something like that. And, move that game, find a way to move that game up to week 0, change around week 1. So, you aren't playing Western Michigan right then. Have that over there. But again, I think that's more so because Michigan wants to showcase its brand. They don't care like about it being a good game. They're not trying to appeal to people in that sense. They're like, come and look at the winged helmets. So ultimately, honestly, even, and I do have a skewed thought on this because when I heard it, I was like, absolutely. So there is a self-serving nature to this, but overall, I'm not that mad at it. I know there's a lot of people that are so mad at it, think it's so stupid. It's, Michigan hasn't done the foreign trips after spring ball since 2019. That was the last time and that's when they went to South Africa. This kind of has both elements of that plus a game, right? Because I assume they will be there for a full week. So I'm just not that mad at it. I know a lot of other people are, and other people saying, hey, that's a cheaper ticket we could have gotten, that we could have gone to. There's, I'm sure week 3 would be there too, right? Like they play Oklahoma in week 2, and then I don't remember who they play in week 3, but like there's not another like massive opponent following the Oklahoma game. So, I mean, that's just another opportunity, and there will be more. So I just think it's kind of cool personally. And, it's a good experience for the players. It's a good recruiting chip to some degree. It's like for, some of the outstanding 2026 targets being like, hey, Savion Hyder, your first game is actually going to be in Germany. Like you're going to spend a week in Germany before, and, you're going to come on campus, you're going to do all that stuff. And then you get to go and play in Germany. Like that's a cool sell. It's not the first location I would have picked. I would have picked probably Dublin. I would have picked probably someplace in like Rome or Barcelona, London. It's the center field at Spa Francorchamps. Yeah, probably what I would have picked before that, but still. Nonetheless, I think it's cool, and I think it's a cool central location. If you do decide to go, there's all kinds of options at your disposal. My colleague Anthony Broom went out to Frankfurt for his honeymoon and also went to London. That's a flight, but flights you can do that relatively cheap. I'm thinking and planning of checking out some northern Italy as well as Austria. So there's a lot of different things that you can do if you were to go out there. Week beforehand, there's an F1 race outside of Amsterdam. It's all at your disposal. All right, that's going to do it for today. We will be back tomorrow as we are going to continue to just kind of recount news stuff. I do believe that we will start press conferences this week. If that's the case, we will start kind of getting more into, and we don't necessarily have a structure, but more into the press conference reaction mode. We will have a mailbag this week, either Thursday or Friday, and we will unveil. We didn't do a good job with Trente last year, and that's on me when I got pneumonia. But we will have a so-called celebrity guest once or twice a week, starting this week, hopefully, to go through and talk about what Michigan is capable of, react to games, preview games, all that kind of stuff. So we will unveil him once that time comes. So I just narrowed it down by half for you. All right. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again soon. Peace.